After doing October with all horror movies and November with all vampire movies, I figured it was time to branch back out and dip into some of the other genres. So let's go sci-fi with the Universal Soldier franchise. I mean, it seems easy enough, right? I mean, it's just a silly little action franchise about zombie cyborg Van Damme, right? I mean, how hard can this be? We start back in 1992 with Universal Soldier from director Roland Emmerich, who was a really big thing for a while and is still active, but it seems to have kind of fallen out of favor since that 2012 movie. We begin back in 1969, Vietnam, with the Time Cop finding out that Sergeant He-Man has gone insane, and they kill each other. We then cut to present day, so possibly 92, and the military has this counter-terror unit made up of cyborg guys, and both Luke and Andrew are there. And the profile is here as a reporter, and the boys are called the Universal Soldiers, and they start to remember each other. After Andrew goes off the rails, Luke saves Veronica, and they go on the run together, taking time to get as nude as possible with like tons of screen time for Jean-Claude's man Ham. And Unisols heat up real fast, and Tiny Lister's also one of them. And this is the second video he's been in of mine this month, and that's always a plus. Andrew remembers everything and rogues it up, and they meet up with the doc who created the process, and oddly, they show him at what seems to be Luke's death, and he doesn't really seem to have aged, but this would have to have been like 20 plus years later, so maybe that's not when he died? After a big chase in which the soldiers are all seemingly killed, Luke goes back to his family, reuniting with his parents. Then, finally, Veronica says that it's been 25 years, actually setting the film in 1994 then, unless she's rounding up, but with all the slightly futuristic stuff, I guess it makes sense. I mean, it's like 2 years futuristic, but I guess every bit counts. Sarge is still alive, and they duke it out until finally Luke wins out and impales the guy and then threshes him for good measures. The film was a pretty big success, but a sequel didn't arrive until 6 years later, and it didn't actually play in theaters and instead ran on the Movie Channel before they just called it TMC. It lets us know that the Universal Soldier project actually started back in 1953, but then tells us that the events of the first film actually took place in 1998. So I guess Ronnie was just rounding that 25 years number? We see the finale of the last film, although with different actors and like a quarter of the money, and Luke is now a lot less French sounding. We pick up right afterwards, so we're still in 98, and the Ginger Dead Man is here. And the news says that we're actually only 1 week after the last film's start. So since that last one took place over a few days, it's only a couple of days later. They're able to track Luke, even though he literally cut the tracker out of himself in the last one, and we find out that Luke had a brother that also died in action. They say that he died when Luke was 9, and Luke went to Vietnam when he was 19, so yeah, I guess he was supposed to be that age when he died. And he gets recalled back to Chicago. Seems like all along he had an AWOL inhibitor that I guess that they just forgot all about in the last movie. And then Veronica finds a bunch of soldiers, including the very first one, who's William Stryker, who was killed in 1952. Does Logan know about this? The second one died in 53, but number 5 is Luke's bro, of course, if you didn't happen to see that one coming. He died in 59, so yeah, 10 years before his little bro, and she restores him so he can make some faces. A lot of faces. It's Jeff Wincott, and he just really goes all out. And weirdly, he kind of looks like a buff Scott Thompson from Kids in the Hall. Seeing his brother restores Luke's memory, and I'll be honest, not much really happens for a while. And then Julian Richards, that odd-looking guy that plays a lot of odd-looking guys, shows up, and there's a final fight in a honky-tonk bar in which Busey is shot and Eric is killed, and the head of the Unisol initiative is revealed to be the Bandit. Later that same year was Universal Soldier 3: Unfinished Business, and it was shot back to back with Part 2, since both movies were intended as a sort of a pilot for a TV show. Oddly, they retconned the original movie by showing Luke's gravestone and having his death date as 1972 instead of 69, and they're creating a new clone soldier baby thing. We've picked up right where the last one left off, so all three of these take place in 98 then. Luke and Veronica head to Canada to get help, but wind up in a hostage situation. And then Luke becomes a superhero, sort of, and the clone grows rapidly, but they destroy Luke's family home and kill his parents. They then go off in search of Dr. Gregor, and he's been recast now, and they say that they just saw him a few weeks ago in the first movie, confirming that this is all over the course of a few weeks. And it all to the tune of a single guitar riff that they play over and over and over again. There's apparently now sleepers that are non-combat units that are just in society, although none of them were necessary until now. And then after a bunch of pretty bland action scenes and stuff set to the silliest discount Rage Against the Machine possible,
do what you want, feel the fact, pull back the finger on the trigger if I ever hear some joke. Sounds getting wicked when I kick it on the DL, cause I hook the beats rhyming on to let the beats well.
Luke has to face off against his cloned brother, but he literally just shows him a picture, a single photograph, and it breaks his programming. But they have a bomb in his chest, so he dies. Again. Luke meets Jack Horner, and hold on. Burt Reynolds is in this. Burt freaking Reynolds is in Universal Soldiers 3, which premiered on the movie channel 1 year after being in Boogie Nights. This happened. Wait, correct that. 1 year after being nominated for an Oscar for Boogie Nights, he was in Universal Soldier 3: Unfinished Business. When exposed, he kills himself, but oh no, he's a Universal Soldier too, and he activates all the sleepers, setting things up for the intended TV show, or maybe more movies. But that didn't happen. Instead, 1 year later, the franchise jumped back to the big screen with 1999's Universal Soldier: The Return. And hey, speaking of returns, Jean-Claude is back as Luke. And you know what else is back? Some sort of budget. An evil Santa Claus is here, and they're still fighting against Unisols, but they seem a lot less robotic than before. But it's all just an exercise, and Luke is no longer a Universal Soldier, and has, I guess, been restored to a human state? He has a daughter that's like 13 or 14 years old or so. So this is a minimum of like 14 or 15 years later. So if we're gonna go with that first movie 25 years after 1969 thing, then that makes this 2009, 10 years in the future from when it was released. They also say that they've spent years cleaning up the PR from the original program, and it appears like Veronica died. Based on how they talk about the Unisol program and Luke's personality, it seems as if we're ignoring the TV movies, but it's possible that they happened. It turns out that there's a rogue AI called Seth that reprograms the soldiers and takes over in the most hilarious way possible.
Hello, Dr. Cotner. I'm ready when you are. But on the other hand, you.
Like 4 of them are able to take out an entire military force because no one, I guess, remembers that the only way to take them out is to destroy their brains, so they only shoot their chests. I guess I should point out that the film was directed by Mike Rogers, who has an extensive IMDb profile doing stunt work, but only one director's job, and this was it. Although he does do quite a bit of second unit work. Seth builds himself a body, and it's black dynamite. And they go to a strip club, and Luke wants to use their internet. And I guess this is a lesson on how difficult things were pre-smartphones. If you needed to get online, you would have to go to a strip club, knock out the bouncer, and sneak into the back office. which contains a phone sex operator and a dancer for some reason. Yes, the strip club has a girl stripping in the back office. I suppose for the benefits of the phone sex workers who aren't even looking at her. But then, when I suppose hacking the Army mainframe, which you can just do from a strip club computer, he sees a call log from Seth, and they're all dated 1999. And they're supposed to be recent. So this film is set in 1999, and that's a huge problem. That means that Luke's daughter was born in the mid-80s, but 25 years before that was early 60s, or even the late 50s. So that makes the Vietnam stuff in the first movie not make any sense, unless somehow, due to the Universal Soldier stuff, the daughter's aging is rapid, and she's only about like 4 years old or something. Anyway, Seth kidnaps Hillary, and he goes to save her, but oh no, they turned one of Luke's co-workers into a Universal Soldier. But then he shoots her once, and that's over. Thank goodness they took the time to put that in there. In the final battle, Seth gets T-1000 in a hilariously goofy effect, and the military blows the rest of them up. That was a big flop at the box office, and the series was shelved for a while, and it wasn't until 2009, a full 10 years later, that it came back with Universal Soldier Regeneration, which went straight to the video market. It begins with a kidnapping, with Russian terrorists negotiating for the return of their imprisoned members, and they talk about something called White Tower that was shut down a year ago. The rebels are in Chernobyl, and we're now told the Universal Soldier program was called Black Tower and began in the 60s during Vietnam, which contradicts the TV movies, which started earlier, and it kept going and 5 years ago was called White Tower, which just seems to throw all the other films in the trash, although I suppose it's possible the return could maybe still be in continuity. The new models are called NGUs, but then they reintroduce Luke, and he's still a Unisol, and they're trying to rehabilitate him, so it seems like this is actually dropping the last film. He's no longer human, still a part of the program, no mention is made of his daughter, and he's nowhere near as cognizant as he was. And they even say that the rehab started just 2 years ago, so this is simply a direct sequel to the first film. So we now have 3 separate continuities in the Universal Soldier universe. Meanwhile, they prep some of the original Unisols to take on the terrorists, and strangely, this display shows a soldier's date of birth as being 7/16/98, but he's supposed to be first gen like Luke, so I'm not quite sure how that works. They show another one who was born in 78, which makes a little bit more sense, but still doesn't match up with the whole idea of first gen being in the 60s, unless they're just calling any that aren't the NGUs first gen. That makes sense for this guy, but not the other, unless this is in the future, because if it's in real time, that other dude was 12 years old. A third guy was born in 57, and that makes the most sense, I guess, but he was still too young to be in Vietnam. And after one NGU takes out all the Unisols, they bring Luke back in. Plus, the bad guy Doc has a mysterious clone in a box, and this guy pretends to type, like, what is he doing here? But then the clone is revealed to be none other than Andrew Scott. As soon as he's brought back, he kills the whole terrorist squad and takes over. Just like he did the first time around. I'm not sure why they expected this to go differently. Why bring back the soldier who killed all of his superiors the first time around instead of, well, any of the others? They fully reactivate Luke, and he and Andrew duke it out until a well-placed pipe to the head, followed by a shotgun blast, settles that score again.
I just remembered what I wanted to tell you. Wait a sec.
Finally, he manages to blow up the NGU guy and take off on his own. It ends with them making one of the human soldiers from this one into a new Unisol, so the program continues. So, here's the thing. There's no visible date, and they don't really get into the time frame too much, and the dates that they do show don't make any sort of logical sense, and seems to be purposefully confusing. So I'm setting it in the real time 2009, 15 years after the first film. 3 years later, the series continued in a weird way with 2012's Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning, which brought back director John Hyams, and action guy Scott Adkins is a new character, and his family is killed by Luke? John goes into a coma for 9 months, and an FBI agent shows John a picture of Luke, and it's dated June of 2012. And it's a current photo, so we're in the current year. And he's on the run since the end of the last film, so that one takes place pre-2012 as well. This release form shows John's birth date as 1978, so he's 34 years old, and somehow Andrew Scott is back. And there's a sleeper agent, kind of like they were doing on the TV show of an NGU, and he's hunting Unisols. Scott frees him from control and sends him after John, and he and Scott are just collecting soldiers. And the FBI agent says that the agents have been disappearing for the past 3 years, which seems to indicate that that's how long he's been on the loose, which indeed places the last film in 2009. Then, this movie figures out what people want to see, and it's not dudes on jet skis with explosions going off behind them. It's two guys brutally kicking the crap out of each other while destroying their surroundings. It gets pretty wild as John discovers the real John, and he's merely a clone, tricked into hunting Luke, and his family was never real, just programmed memories. John kills John, and yeah, this one gets complicated, and he goes to meet one of the original Unisol docs who says he's 3 weeks old. He goes nuts, killing basically everyone that he sees until he goes up against Scott, who dies again. Dolph just can't make it through even one of these, but he always gets some pretty kick-ass deaths. He meets Luke finally, who has gone full Kurtz and did this face paint dealio, so they fight with the OG Unisol, letting John kill him rather than continue the cycle of clones coming after him. He then kills Agent Gorman, replaces him with a clone, and takes over the Unisol group, still looking for revenge against the people who killed the family that never existed. So, let's break this down a bit. This is 6 movies that barely connect. You have the first continuity, which is the original Universal Soldier, followed by the 2 TV movies, all taking place right after one another, all in 1998. The second continuity ignores the TV movies and is simply the first movie, which takes place in 1994 or so, and The Return, which I guess takes place 5 years later, although giving Luke enough time to have a teenage daughter or something. So maybe it's its own thing entirely and not actually connected to the first movie, and solely exists on its own, taking place in 1999, with the events of the first movie having taken place in the 80s then. Then there's the third continuity, which is the first film, taking place in 94, and then Regeneration and Day of Reckoning, which jump ahead to 2009 and 2012. Apparently a reboot is on its way, or maybe not, but there's been talks about it for a few years now, so it seems to be in development hell. So there you have it. It's 6 movies that are fairly entertaining. I enjoyed most of these. I wasn't mad at watching them. It's odd because this is one of the few series that I feel like actually gets progressively better. The first movie's fine. It's just a fairly typical action movie from that era. The TV movies are they're TV movies. I mean, they're fine. They're just a little bit dull. And then The Return is better in terms of budget and the action scenes and everything, but the story is pretty terrible. But then when you start to get into Regeneration, and particularly Day of Reckoning, it actually gets significantly better. I really loved the last one. The Day of Reckoning I thought was a pretty wild trip and a lot of fun. Definitely went places I did not think it was going to go, and it's just very weird, almost like sort of David Lynchian kind of movie. I highly recommend it if you like weird, bizarre action flicks. The action scenes are pretty spectacular as well too, so I really like that one. If there's one movie I would check out, I don't even think you need to check out the other ones. Just go straight to Day of Reckoning, and it's a wild ride. If you liked these, let me know down below in the comments. If you enjoy these movies, let me know. If you enjoyed this video, let me know that as well too. If I piqued your interest in these, tell me that. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/movietimelines. I'd surely appreciate you guys go and help the channel and supporting it like these people do over here who are my patrons, who are very nice people and very awesome, and thank you guys for helping me. And meanwhile, just keep on watching these videos. I appreciate that. I'll be back very, very shortly for another great one. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.